You know, and I do want to just, again, for everybody, this is kind of an informal, very informal, talking about what Eleanor Jackson meant to us and how she impacted the life of this church. And so, for those of you who are willing to share, instead of doing it from your seat, just for the kind of the benefit of Jack and Cindy, if you would come up here and just make a brief story and for them, I think that'd be great. What I'm going to do, I'm going to be going out with the youth because we're going to be doing our preparation for Youth Sunday. So I'm going first, and then the youth and I are going to leave to go to the fellowship hall. But whoever would like to say a quick word, I think would be very appropriate. I did want to say, so on Tuesday night, Lisa and I had the opportunity to go to the hospital. And this was down here at Fayette Community Hospital on 54. And we thought that we were going down because she had pneumonia. She had got complications of pneumonia, and we thought we were just going to see her, because of pneumonia, that she was going to go back home and that she was going to be recovering from that. At the time, I didn't quite realize the implications of our visit on Tuesday night. But this is just this tells you a little bit about Eleanor as a person and her dedication. So we're sitting there, and we're talking to Cindy, and we're talking to Jack, and we're talking to Eleanor. And when you're in the hospital like that, you're falling in and out of sleep. You're on so many medications that Eleanor would fall asleep in her bed for a while, and we'd talk to Cindy, and then Eleanor would wake up and ask Cindy to move her legs, or just to make her a little bit more comfortable in the bed. And during the course of the evening, we just kind of talked about various things. But towards the end, when it was getting clear that it was getting late, we needed to leave. Jack wanted to go home. The husband, he didn't want to stay there the night because he was going home every night. So Eleanor says, "Oh no, Deanie, don't go yet. I got to get you something." And then he says, "Cindy, give me my purse. Give me my checkbook." And so Cindy gets her the checkbook, and Eleanor writes her monthly check for the church. And make sure she puts it in my hand, make sure you deposit this. So I'll deposit that. And then, again, for our benefit of those who don't know Eleanor, she was our treasurer too. I'd been the treasurer, and then I got kind of busy, and then she became treasurer. So for years we worked together doing the church finances. So after she gives me the check, she says, "Okay, now, have you paid these people? Have you paid Clayton Samaritans? Have you paid Samaritans? Make sure you don't forget to pay those, because sometimes I forget." So I said, "I will make sure I pay the Samaritans and Clayton Samaritans." So the last thing that she said to me was that. So, but I thought that was just a really great indication of her character. Thank you.
Danny, would any of the teenagers like to say anything?
Yeah, would Danny, you'd like to say something? I know it's difficult. Okay. All right. If she would like to come back, she could go on. Just follow her already.
I was lucky to be able to have the time to go in and see Eleanor Tuesday also, while Abigail was being born. I will say that I thought when I walked in that I was going to see a very, very bad, dilapidated person. And it just wasn't true. She looked wonderful to me. And she was so matter of fact about the stopping of the medicine. She was just so at peace with everything, I think. And I feel so privileged to have known her because over the years she's been so faithful to this church and to the people of this church. Even if she didn't always agree with everything, she was always there. She always was giving and helping and was a true faithful follower of Christ. And I wish I had known her more on a personal level, but you know how we get so busy sometimes, we just don't take the time to do that. But I feel so She will always be with me. I will never forget her. I never saw her mad. Her dedication to that computer in there that like drove her crazy doing the treasurer reports and things. She never gave up on that either. She never gave up on the church. She never gave up on anything, I think, in her life is probably what her character was. And I loved her. And I told her before I left that she was a good woman. She was one of the best people I'd ever met. So I was so glad that I wanted to go yesterday, but I'm glad my memory is of her on Tuesday. Yeah. That's all I have.
Like Dad said, I think Eleanor was one of the best people that I've ever met in my life. She's always, seems like she was always jolly. She made me laugh. And then I'm so thankful that we went to visit her to take communion that day. That's the last time that I had talked to her or seen her. And I've always considered her a good friend. I remember we were having a work day here, and she was outside working, and I looked out, and I did not recognize her as Eleanor. She reminded me of one of the guys out there working, spreading all that mulch around. She worked rings around me, and she was several years older than I am, but she was a hard worker. She loved the church. Jack always said that he came here because this was a sacred place, and I know that he and Eleanor both considered it to be a sacred place and a place that they wanted to be on Sunday morning. One Sunday she says, I've got something for you. And so she had a sweatshirt that she had made herself. And it was made so that it was a lighthouse here, and it had different colors. And underneath you could wear different colored shirts and things that showed through. And I'll always treasure that shirt because she brought it to me. And the Sunday morning, I was in the kitchen with Shirley, and she told me about this diagnosis. And she said, I think that life would be pretty short. And then she told me about this, and I thought that Jack would leave Eleanor, but as it turns out, she left him, and I know she was ready to go. She's through with suffering, and God has her in His hands. And I'm just happy to be able to know her and be her friend. I was doing fine. So your daughter started. So the sorrow is there. But we'll get through it. I think it's maybe because we love her so much. I wish you all could have been at our Wednesday night prayer meetings, because that's when Eleanor and Jack were the greatest. And I remember those prayer meetings were so interesting because they made it interesting. They brought up questions that I would never thought of. It made me think if Jack's stories were the greatest in the world. Have you ever heard him tell stories? If you wanted to know anything about Fayette County, those two people lived it. They were part of history. And yes, we will miss them. They will grieve. That's part of the process. And like I say, Eleanor Jack had faith in this church.
Yes.
And I think that faith was left here.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will pick it up.
Yes, we will.
And God will carry it to wherever God wants it to go. Because that's the faith that she had. And she passed it on to us. Thank you, Eleanor.
I've worked with Eleanor Jackson on a few things. We've worked around. We have work day out here, and the way she. Now you get on over there and you do such and such, and you get over here and you do such and such. You know, you can just say yes, ma'am. All right, I'll do that. And when I was married, I used to get a lot of honeydew lists, but since then. It's been Shirley and Eleanor who have been more or less directing me. And I need you to do this, and I need you to do that. And that type of direction is what I need in my life. Eleanor created this little vase of flowers, and I had to bring it downstairs, and then the other day, Danny and I were here cleaning up the church, taking the things down, and we took it in the back. And as I watched Miss Bev bringing it back in, how heavy it was. But as heavy as it is, that's how rooted Eleanor was in her faith and her belief in this church and us as individuals. And the song this morning, it just came to me, and it was basically for her. She was tired. She was weary. But she had decided, I must toil on. Until her Savior, Jesus Christ, will call her home. And I truly believe that lives come together like gears on a clock. Some are larger and some are smaller. The gears wind in, and we connect with some for a little while, some for a little longer. And then we just move on down, but we're about our individual jobs. And her work here was complete. And I too thank Virginia and John for us to be able to share communion with her in our home. That meant a lot to her, not just because we were thinking about her and were bringing her communion, but the fact that she saw a resurgence of things in the church that used to be, that are coming back. going out to see the sick and going out to see the shut in. And I tell you, she was very, very happy. I kissed her on her head, but I asked Jack, I asked Jack's permission. I said, Jack, is that right if I give Eleanor a little kiss? And he, yeah, Joe, go ahead. Go ahead. And they'll truly be missed. But Jack is going to need us more after this. And I'm going to try to be able to be there for him. Not just when he calls me, because sometimes people don't want to call. They think they're bothered. And when in actuality, the call that people make to you for help does more for you than it does for them. And I truly believe that. And so I said my goodbyes yesterday. I touched her on her foot and I just said goodbye. Yolanda was there, and Cindy and Cindy's friends, and some neighbors, and it was a good day. I'm glad that I was inspired to get up and go. Sometimes in life we have to do things that we don't want to do, but we know they have to be done. So I'm sure she's in a better place this morning. Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything? I was sitting there thinking, when I think of Eleanor, I think of NASCAR, canned foods like pickled seashells, which she said that she wanted her ashes scattered over the ocean because that's her happy place.
That's good.
And those are the things that I remember that, and she likes to garden. And so I'll always have a piece of her. Besides, in my heart and soul, I also have this lovely shell mobile that she gave me one year for my birthday. I'll always look at it and think of her.